special permits for things.
Yeah.
Like somebody's gonna put a business in a residential area or so. Isn't that correct?
I'm not following.
Not if it's repealed.
If somebody was, you're gonna repeal the fence deed in there, but you can also make, somebody comes in, and wants to put a McDonald's right next to a residential area, you can say, you can do this if you put the fence in. Correct, Doug? One of the
No.
stipulations of it?
No,
You
not
can't
if
do
you
that?
repeal it.
Repeal is done.
Yeah. You can still grant it by variance.
You can't, the one that, I'll
If
grant
you
you
leave
variance
it
will do
in, you
this.
can still grant it by variance the same way we did with the city in this situation. And, you know, the buildings that have been built in the past, we'd have to go back and look at them and see what the actual zoning district was, because the language of the ordinance states if it's in a residentially zoned neighborhood, which does allow for community centers to be placed in those areas, anything abutting a residentially zoned area, off-street parking has to have screening put in. With the case of the community center, a lot of that was actually removed by the vision clearance triangle required at street and alley intersections.
Do we have any other discussion amongst the council? Do we have a motion to forward this to the Area Plan Commission for recommendation?
Well, I think that maybe it should stay in and then the variance granted if all of the criteria are met. Just in case.
Yeah, that way you have at least a choice in there. You can variance it or you can force it. If you take it out, then you.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion to send this on to the Area Plan Commission?
I move to send it on to the Area Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
What's that do when you send it to the area plan committee?
They provide a recommendation and then they bring it back to us and then we can have first reading on it.
To change it?
Yeah, to amend the zoning ordinance, we would have to send it to the Area Plan Commission beforehand.
But I didn't think we were amending it before leaving it in.
Yeah, if that's the case, then we don't want to send it to the ABC. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, well, so
Would you like to rescind your motion?
I certainly do.
So is there a motion to send it to the APC? Well, there's not a motion yet. Would you like to make it first?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? There's no second. I'll consider this ordinance defeated. Move next to proposed ordinance 2018-8, read by title alone, and the ordinance creating a four-way stop at the intersection of Market and Monroe. This was brought up by a resident. It was actually last year, and they reminded me again this year. I went out, and if you're on Monroe Street, it is difficult to see, especially with the angled parking. If a vehicle's traveling northbound on Market, it's difficult. Whether you're on the east or the west side, it really is difficult to see. I sent letters to neighboring property owners in the vicinity asking for their opinions. I did not receive anything back at this point. I did talk to one neighbor who was just sitting on their porch. They said they didn't care one way or the other, but they know that it's an issue. They see close calls. They see people slow down on Market Street as they get to Monroe and then stop. But they didn't say one way or the other which way they would like to go. So I wanted to bring it before the council. If you'd like more information on it, I know when we were looking at Union and Main Streets, I did some time tests to see how it would affect traffic at that intersection, to speed up traffic, slow down traffic based on a 2- or 4-way stop. That's something I could probably put together for you.
Well, I can agree that Market and the road's bad. It's worse than Monroe and Washington.
Yep, I was gonna go right there.
Because of the bank, and you cannot see there at all. I live in Monroe, and I've had several close calls because you're inching out there. I think they're both bad, but I think Washington's worse than Market. So I think we ought to look at that.
Have we had any incidents at Washington and Monroe that come to mind off that, Chief?
Not coming to mind right now,
I
sorry.
know I'm the same way, Dick. I leave that way and it's, you just can't see it. It's a very congested. And same way with the other one, the Mary's
They're both bad.
It's really bad with all.
We have a problem with both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll agree with that, yes, we do, we have a problem with both of them.
Yeah, I just was kind of seeing if there was any accidents.
The only difference is, it used to be that you park parallel instead of angle in front of the bank where you can see. Now, at the corner of Monroe and Market, that has always been angle parking. Ever since I can remember, maybe REMC, when REMC was back there, it was angle parking.
But you have a lot more traffic on Washington, and when there's a truck pulled into the bank there, and you really can't see.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm
No, I
talking about
agree.
Market and Monroe, not Washington and Monroe. I will agree with you that there must be something done between Washington and Monroe Street.
Do you have any record of accidents at Monroe and Market?
It would take a little bit to dig them up, see what we have right now.
That's something the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission should have all the accident reports on file. They could pull them up before the next month. Is there any other information that the council would like to see if we're going to proceed with this besides accident records?
You had no more
Guess if there's
response?
any other options, you know.
You had no response to your letter?
I did not.
I've seen mirrors put up, you know, see those mirrors?
Yep.
Everybody has to learn how to do that too, you know.
Well, it's just like if you would throw a stop sign at either one of them, now we'll have incidents.
Yep.
That'd be the first thing that happens for people.
Have been used to it for
25
100
years,
years.
just drive through it.
Yeah.
But in that term, I believe there's definitely both of them you've looked at, some kind of, traffic's changed, it's more clustered.
So we can pull accident data, and then we can look and see what other options other communities are using at intersections to help make them safer beyond a four-way stop. Roundabout? Is there a motion to pass on first reading? Would you like some more information before we do that? Yes, ma'am.
As you're coming up Market, you cross the railroad tracks, is there just how many feet you can put a stop sign to a railroad track? Because it seems like that's a short distance, like you come right over the railroad tracks and then you just have to stop. So is there a restriction to how far that has to be from here?
Probably.
That's a short block.
What are you talking?
Half a spot. So
They
good.
cross the railroad tracks from here.
I'll look up any manual on uniform traffic control devices should have it. All right. We'll gather that information. Oh, Mr. Herring.
Yeah, well, I've probably been around here, well, not his long, but we got a lot of ordinance here in Delphi that they're not paying attention to. Now, we had a meeting one time with the chief. All these junk cars sitting around here, 3, 4, 5 years with no plates, grass growing on them. I give you a copy of several of them. You wrote it down, and they're still sitting there. Okay, the next thing on your ordinance and stuff, down by me there at Garfield Street, used to be 30 miles an hour until the bridge fell in, right? Well, somebody way back there, after they put the new bridge in, they lowered it to 20. Now my pickup and my wife's car idles at 20 miles an hour. But the worst thing is, and I had it out with one of the city cops, they come down through about 40 miles an hour. And he said he sat out there one time for 30 hours and never caught anybody running 40. And I said, I was talking about you. And while we was talking, I seen his little indicator there, here come a car 39.5 miles an hour. Now ain't that guessing 40 pretty close? At 53 years of driving a semi on the road, I can guess it pretty darn close. Now, is there any way, and I've asked you, and I've asked the chief, and I've also went and asked the sheriff, is there any way you can put a speed bump down there?
There is.
You said something about them, now they've got them around different places in town to slow the speed down. But this right down here, little kids are playing. Now, they got this light up above that blinks, you know what that means, ma'am? No,
It's caution.
you're getting close, but what does that flashing orange light mean? They're having a game today.
Yeah, oh, it does.
It don't say nothing about slowing down. And I'm talking about the people that live up there and the police that goes out and checks the airport. Now, there's nothing that drastic unless somebody's gonna steal a paper cub, that they gotta be running that fast down there when they're having Little League. Now then you hear the sirens are blowing bad, and you wait, and they're still blowing, and you, pretty soon here comes the paramedics about 30, going to life or death. Going to the airport's not life or death. And the next thing is, they could go out this way and cut across like they go on the floor. Right there's the airport. Now, another thing, until I retired a year ago, I worked for a guy over at Flora driving a truck. Midnight, you go over there on the farm, wash your truck out. You come to Delphi to drop your trailer off. Here comes a set of headlights. And they're on you. And they go by you, and my truck would run 73 miles an hour. And they pull away from me. Now, they're going to back up somebody. Instead of dropping off at the pig plant, I come on in there, there they sat, at the jail. What was he doing at Flora? At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? Now answer me, what are they doing over at Flora? Come on there. Just here recently, they actually checked that one filling station, made it in a convenience store, okay? The cops in Flora come over here because we had 2 places they could get something to eat. But a year ago, there was no reason for them to be there. And then when they come back to Delphi, I'm talking 80 miles an hour, or if I can't catch them at 73. Now that's not only, what would happen if a deer would walk out in front of them at 3 o'clock in the morning? There ain't no way they could get stopped. This same cop that I'm talking about totaled 2 of your big Fords because he knows it's flat on the floor. One of them, he went out on a little fender bender, didn't make it under the railroad underpass. Next one, what was he doing in Logansport? On his way back in, the car running too fast. He pulled in the guy's drive right back out in front of another car and totaled both of them. He's still on the police force. Now, we had it out, and there's another thing, the mayor, if he will, I want to see the document that they got on files that says we can do any damn thing we want to do. And I tried to tell him, you don't read very good. That document says you do anything you want to do. Now, you can go to Lafayette or Logansport, maybe even Monticello, and say something. Said, you guys has got the worst police force in Indiana. They're not out here to protect us and the people that live here, you know. And we'll get back to the stop sign, and you was right. They need one right out here. Twice I about got hit. Now you can look both ways and everything, and you keep working out, and you look at it and you're looking out. You get down the road, and here's that car. What's he running? He's running about 40 and a 20. One of my daughter's customers built a beautiful bench over at the restaurant. You can sit on there and watch them people come through. They come off the Hoosier Heartline about 70 miles an hour. They don't get it slowed down till they hit right out here. Right here in front of the police station. I have yet ever to see a cop stop a car out here. Now when the light turns red, man, they're on the brakes. They got to give her a stop. If they had a stop sign out here, that's all I got to say. You know, all these things that's on the document, we might as well throw them out the window. And I told you about a lot of them cars. There's one down there by the little ballpark. You can't put no more in his yard. Junk down from you there, right on the left, you know. One that always has all the Christmas stuff up. He's got a pickup load of junk sitting out there along the road they haven't picked up yet. A beautiful place, right? That's all I got to say. Probably too much.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Is there anything further on the stop sign?
Living here 80 years don't have you know nothing, right? No, nothing. Just pay your taxes and shut up.
All right. Move on to resolution or proposed resolution 2018-18.
Wait a minute, one more thing I want to say, and that guy right there knows it too. There's a gal that lives way out there on the Dayton Blacktop. She's late for work every morning. One morning she didn't make it to work. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
She'll pass you coming down the hill. She'll pass you in the bridge on the double yellow line. She'll pass you in front of my house on the double yellow line because she's got to get to work. That one particular morning, she didn't make it for about 2 or 3 weeks, did she? She tried to shoot that Hoosier Heartland, she didn't get it shot. And that's the problem we got out there now. They're wanting to make a J-turn or something out of it. It never worked. Never worked.
Move on to proposed resolution 2018-18, read by title alone, an SRF loan program signatory authorization resolution. Present from Butler, Fairman, and Seifert's Mike Smith, as well as John Julian from Umball. Mr. Smith, would you like to explain the purpose of this resolution?
The resolution is to basically get in line for SRF funding. So you're not committing yourself to anything other than you fill out the application after you do the resolution, send the application in, and it gets things started. The next step would be for us to finish the PER, which is the preliminary engineering report, and that would be come through next month, or by August, excuse me. So basically, it's just authorizing the mayor to sign to apply for SRF funding.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Smith?
So if we sign to do that, does that commit us to anything?
No, just basically just getting you in line. The commitment would come when you submit the PER, which is the preliminary engineering report, which would be sometime in August.
Who submits that?
The city of Delphi would submit it.
Right, but.
We would prepare it.
Right, but does the city council submit that, or does the board of works submit it?
John?
The mayor.
The mayor is authorized. This is authorizing the mayor to submit that.
Okay, I'm not certain that I understand. If we're applying for this funding, is there only some months within the year that this can be done? I mean, the urgency appears that, oh, we have to do it tonight, we have to do it now, I mean, can you do it other months beside, is there a deadline here, or what are we looking at?
There are deadlines. John, you want to speak to that?
Right, as Mike mentioned, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get in line for the funding. And the funding is available in a couple of forms, but obviously the one that we're most interested in is their low-interest subsidized program. And you can apply for that at any time, but they create their list of eligible communities, eligible projects in July. So taking this step moves us closer to being on the list. But as Mike mentioned, putting this application, or passing this resolution and putting the application doesn't bind you to anything, and doesn't make this year you eligible, or it makes you eligible, it doesn't commit you to anything. So if you proceed down this step and decide not to move forward with the project, or decide to not get funding from SRF, that's still your prerogative. If you pass this resolution and proceed with the application, there's no promise from SRF that you're going to be eligible for the 2% interest loan. just keeping your option open.
So the first step
So the,
is,
oh, go ahead. Yeah,
the
I was
first
just gonna.
step is passing the resolution, and then you submit a pre-engineering document,
Yes.
and then what happens next?
That basically goes in for approval through SRF, and then through that approval process, once the approval process is, we can start on the final engineering. And the reason why you want to get it in sometime this summer, the timing of it would be, you know, like if you work backwards and you want to get started on a project by next year, then you have to have all these things done. So you have to have a bid, then you would have to take bids by, I believe it's early January for next year. So there is a timing that way, not, it's not, you have to hurry up, but you do have certain time limits you have to hit. So what we were looking at, the time frame of July submittal, the August PER, and then the approval, so we can start getting bid documents ready for bid in the first quarter of next year.
So it is committing the city to a pretty good expenditure of engineering costs. It is doing that. It's not just putting something on the list. It's committing the city to a lot of engineering costs.
No, go
Well, the
ahead.
Fairman Cybert's already under contract for the preliminary engineering report.
So we're committing the city of Delphi to $13,475,000. Is that what?
Tonight?
No.
All we're
Tonight,
doing
you're not
is-
really committing anything. You have hired us to prepare a preliminary engineering report, okay? So once that report is completed, it has to be approved. Once it is approved, then you would start the design phase of it. That's the point, at that point, when the PER is approved, that's the point that you would commit to any engineering. Further than you have already, and that the preliminary engineering report was approved, I think, a month ago.
There's a number of steps that are gonna have to occur before the city is committing itself to the full project. At this point, what you wanna know, I think, as you evaluate your options for the project, or whether you can have access to the low interest loan. And that's gonna help you for the project this magnitude, to try to keep the rates as low as possible. You can't find out if you're gonna get the low interest loan until you do the application. So the authorization with the resolution is just stating that the mayor is the authorized signatory that would submit the application. And even with that, there's no committal that you're gonna move forward with the project. The only thing you've really committed, I assume, there's an engineering contract with the PER with
Yes.
Board of Works?
Yes.
Yeah, that was previously done. So that's not even in place.
So the Board of Works already approved that?
Yes, we've been working on that, and that's actually, you contracted us to do an application and a PER, so we've got the application part ready for you to send in, and we're working on the PER, so we'll complete that in August. So the way, to put it just in plain terms, you can walk away at any time until you would make a commitment to financing, right? So, and that will come through public hearing and resolution, you know, which will be by the councils. So you can walk away until that time.
Right. Sequence-wise, you're gonna wanna do the application. You're gonna find out where the SRF is and what they're gonna commit to you or what they're not gonna commit to you, because that's gonna help you judge the impact of this project on your rates. That's just the first step. Somewhere along the line, you're gonna be faced with a decision whether you're gonna move forward with the engineering to do the full design. You need the full design to get to the bid phase, so you actually know what the construction cost is. Once that's in place, you will have a couple of ordinances that the council will want to consider. One is the bond ordinance, which is your contract with the SRF to actually borrow money. But at the same time, they're not going to accept that unless you've done a rate ordinance, which requires a couple of hearings, or a couple of meetings and a public hearing before that takes place. So all that is going to play out over the next 6-7 months at the fastest.
Where are the figures coming from that are in this? It says, and I realize where the figures come from for the water towers and everything like that, but where are the figures coming from for the additional construction?
For the additional construction, what do you mean by
You're talking
that?
the Prince William Loop, the connecting
Oh.
of the wells and all that stuff.
Where is,
Where did we get the figures that are in here?
oh, okay, we did estimates. When we did a master plan for the Delphi for water.
The last several meetings I've been to, Board of Works meetings and such, it seems like your estimates are always coming in lower than what the actual bids are. What happens if that takes place here? Where's that extra money gonna come from?
There is a contingency, so what we usually do is we estimate a project, we look at the economy, which is a hard thing to do right now because bids all over the state, it's not just here, are coming in much higher because, first of all, the labor's more difficult because the unemployment rate's so low, so it's harder to get people. Contractors are really busy, so really exactly coming up with what the contractors, we know what we think it should take, but a contractor has all these other, variables to think about, so it's harder. But to answer your question, we come up with a number and say this water tower is going to be $1 million to build. But then what we do is we put a contingency on that, a percent contingency, say 10 or 12% contingency. So instead of, when we think it's going to be $1 million, we'll put $1,120,000 in for a construction cost. So if you look, I don't know if did they have, we have some of those contingency numbers shown. I'm not sure where.
I don't believe they're within the
Okay.
applications here today.
So that is, but that's part of the process of coming up with an estimate, is including contingency number.
How much?
It's just like, also, it's like when you're doing the contingencies vary on the type of work you're doing. If you're doing something that's very easy to see and you think there's not going to be very many problems, then the contingency rate could be lower. If you're digging underground and you could have utilities, you could have who knows what, then you raise your contingency. So, and then as you design a project, you get closer to what you want, where you want it, then your contingency actually goes down. So when you just throw out there, we want to build a tower, we have to put a larger contingency on it because we don't know if the foundation, if we can build the foundation right, how much is it going to cost to build a foundation until you do a geotechnical investigation. So you put a high number on it. When you've done the geotechnical and you've got everything down, you know more what's going to be, then your contingency will go down.
And how much did you say? 10 or 15%?
I think for aeration, you had about 35% in the contingency.
For what?
For aeration.
When I just said 10%, like I said, it depends on the type of work you're doing, what your percentage of contingency is, and how far out you are. If you're just looking at a map and you say, well, we want to put a water tower here, we want to put a water tower here, I mean, your contingency is going to be a lot higher, and until you design how you're going to get the lines to the water tower, how you're going to get away from it, what you're going to, materials you're going to build. So contingency varies depending on where you're at in the design process.
Well, I'm looking at one construction document that shows a 48% contingency fee.
Okay, you're looking at total contingency. I'm talking about construction contingency. So there's a construction contingency, there's a contingency for engineering, financing, bonding, and additional construction. So when you total all those together, yeah, you're probably at that.
48%?
Well, you had 12.5% for soft cost, then you had market escalation because we were going off of 2016 numbers.
We started coming up with construction cost estimates in 2016. Here we are in 2018, And if you start doing this, if you approve everything today and you move as fast as you can, you're probably 2019 for your building. Well, that's 3 years. What has happened to construction costs since 2016? So that's why that number is so large.
This is also one of the reasons why, at this stage, you're not committing to anything. You're just putting your name in line to hold a dollar amount. The program, the SRF program, is pretty solidly funded, but it doesn't have unlimited money. And so they need to know who's putting applications in and roughly how much they're being asked to fund, just so they can get a sense of how many projects they can fund. And I'm not saying you want to be unrealistically aggressive in putting your dollar amount, but you do want, if you're going to err, you want to err on the high side, because you're not committed to take it. So once you get done with the design and get all the final details taken care of, including the most important detail, which is getting the construction bids in, and you fine tune the amount that you're going to borrow to that fixed amount. All the questions are answered, and you can fix it in the amount. It just gets a little more complicated if you put the application in for 13.5 and you end up needing 14. It's harder to find more money than it is to find out that it's coming in at 13 instead of 13.5 that you asked for.
Well, back to Dale, back to your question on contingency also. We have several different types of projects together, so we're just picking one contingency number for several types of projects. Again, if we're building a water tower on property that Delphi already owns, we kind of know what's going to happen there. But if we have to run a water line and buy easements, we're going to pick a number for those easements. But if you can pick a number and get close to what an easement's going to cost 3 or 4 years from now, that's pretty difficult. So what I'm saying is we take all those and we've got them all into this big project. Some of the areas of the project are going to be higher contingencies than others, but we just pick a number that we try to feel comfortable with. And like John said, we don't want to be way out of the ballpark, but we don't want to be low and all of a sudden, it's going to cost more. So one of the other variables of contingency is land acquisition, which we really are not sure until you get the exact route of where you're going to go.
On this one document, it says non-construction costs, $1,600,000. Can you tell us what those costs are?
That would be engineering. I don't know if the land, I'm not looking at the document you're looking at. It could be land acquisition, it could be your bond counsel, and also your HJ Amball's fees, so it's the non-construction costs.
$1,600,000?
Are you looking, is the total, I'm not sure what he's looking at. What's the total construction cost of that?
Within the application, total construction cost.
Oh,
is like
is that what you're looking at?
$11,875,000.